Emma woke up Friday morning to 47 missed messages, the first one from Priya saying, "OMG, have you seen page 6? And with a sense of dread, Emma opened the gossip site to find grainy photos clearly taken with a telephoto lens showing images of her and Alexander from the previous night, walking to the diner, sitting in the booth, standing close in her apartment hallway with his hand near her face, and the headline read, "Billionaire CEO Alexander Hayes' Secret Romance? Mysterious woman identified as Hayes Industries employee." The article was worse, full of speculation about their relationship, questions about favoritism, and a quote from an anonymous Hayes Industries source saying Emma had been promoted suspiciously quickly after meeting Hayes at a charity gala. Her phone rang with Alexander saying immediately, "I'm so sorry, I should have been more careful, I didn't think," but Emma interrupted, "It's not your fault, but Alexander, this could undermine everything, the project, my credibility," and he said, "No, I won't let that happen, I'm having PR draft a statement," but she asked, saying what? That there's nothing between us? Because after last night? And she trailed off before Alexander said quietly, "Because after last night I don't want to lie about this, but I also won't let your professional reputation be collateral damage for my personal feelings." Before Emma could respond, her door buzzer rang unexpectedly and she told Alexander, "I have to go, someone's here," and hung up to press the intercom asking yes, only to hear, "It's Marcus, we need to talk," and her stomach dropped as she said, "This isn't a good time," but he insisted, "Make it a good time, I'm not leaving until we talk." With a sigh, Emma buzzed him up, already regretting it, and Marcus looked rough with designer stubble and expensive casual wear but bloodshot eyes as he said without preamble, "I saw the photos, page 6, TMZ, everywhere," and when Emma asked, "And," he said, "and I wanted to make sure you were okay, this is going to get ugly, Emma, media attention, corporate politics, you're not prepared for this." She said dryly, "I appreciate your concern but I'm fine," but Marcus stepped closer asking, "Are you? 6 months ago you were crying over a cancelled birthday cake, now you're dating Alexander Hayes? It doesn't add up," and anger flared as Emma said, "What doesn't add up, Marcus, is that you think I'm too mediocre to attract a successful man without some kind of scheme," and he protested, "I didn't say that," but she shot back, "You didn't have to. You spent 3 years telling me I lacked ambition, that I'd never fit into certain social circles, and now that I'm succeeding on my own terms you can't handle it." Marcus stopped, ran a hand through his hair and said, "Emma, I made a mistake with us, I see that now," and the admission hung in the air. A year ago, even 6 months ago, those words would have meant everything to Emma, but now they just felt hollow. "You're engaged, Marcus," she stated, and he said, "I know, but watching you with Hayes at that event, seeing how he looks at you, Vanessa and I, it's practical, strategic, it's not," and he met her eyes, "It's not what we had." Emma said flatly, "What we had was you taking me for granted until you traded up for someone with better connections, and now that you've realized I wasn't the stepping stone you thought I was, you're having regrets. That's not love, Marcus, that's ego." And when he asked, "So you're choosing him? A billionaire who's going to get bored and move on to the next interesting project?" she corrected, "I'm choosing myself, something I should have done years ago. Now please leave." Monday morning Emma was summoned to an emergency board meeting, and she'd never been in the same room as Hayes Industries' board of directors, so walking into the executive conference room felt like entering a lion's den. Alexander was already there along with 12 other board members, a mix of venture capitalists, tech veterans, and business moguls, all of them looking at Emma with varying degrees of skepticism. The board chair, a silver-haired woman named Catherine Park, began, "Ms. Chen, I'm sure you're aware of the media coverage this weekend regarding your relationship with Mr. Hayes," and Emma said, keeping her voice steady, "I am." Before Catherine continued, "The board has concerns about potential conflicts of interest, questions of favoritism, and the impact on company morale and public perception." Emma glanced at Alexander, who gave her a barely perceptible nod as they discussed this possibility over the weekend, and she said, "I understand your concerns and I want to be absolutely clear. I earned my position as lead on the Hometown Stories project through merit. The project proposal was based on a concept I've been developing for years, long before I met Mr. Hayes, and the results speak for themselves. We've exceeded every target metric and generated positive coverage for Hayes Industries in communities that previously viewed us with suspicion." Catherine said, "No one is questioning the project's success but the appearance of impropriety," and Alexander interrupted, is exactly that, an appearance. Emma and I met at a charity gala. I didn't know she worked for Hayes Industries until after our conversation, during which she unknowingly pitched me a brilliant idea that aligned perfectly with a strategic direction I'd already been considering. Another board member asked, "So you're admitting there's a personal relationship?" And Alexander said evenly, "I'm admitting that I care about Emma, but I'm not willing to pretend otherwise to protect optics. She's here on merit. If anyone doubts that, review her performance metrics, review the project outcomes, review the feedback from her team and the communities we've engaged with." Catherine looked at Emma asking, "Ms. Chen, do you believe you can continue in your role while navigating a personal relationship with the CEO?" And it was the question Emma had been asking herself all weekend, the honest answer complicated but the professional answer needing to be simple. "I believe I can," Emma said, "because this project is bigger than either of us. The communities we're working with don't care about corporate gossip, they care about whether we show up, whether we listen, whether we deliver. That's what I'm committed to." The board members conferred quietly before Catherine spoke. "Here's what we're going to do. Ms. Chen, you'll continue in your role, but we're adding an independent oversight committee to review all major decisions related to hometown stories. This isn't a reflection on your competence, it's about protecting both you and Mr. Hayes from accusations of favoritism." And Emma said, "I can accept that, though the idea of additional oversight chafed." Catherine continued, "Mr. Hayes, we'd like you to maintain professional distance from this project going forward. No more direct involvement in Ms. Chen's work." But Alexander tensed, saying, "With respect, Catherine, that's not practical. This is a flagship initiative," and she interrupted, "that you've now delegated to very capable hands. You have an entire company to run, Alexander. Let Emma do her job without the complication of your presence." It was a fair point, but it also felt like a punishment, and Emma and Alexander exchanged a look across the table full of frustration, resignation, and something deeper that neither could voice in this setting. "Fine," Alexander said finally, "I'll recuse myself from direct involvement in hometown stories," and Catherine turned to Emma asking, "Ms. Chen, do you have any questions?" Emma asked, "Just one. If I hadn't been photographed with Mr. Hayes, would we be having this conversation about my competence?" And the question hung in the air as Catherine had the grace to look uncomfortable before admitting, "Probably not, which is exactly why we need these safeguards, to ensure that your success is never questioned, that your achievements stand on their own merit." And Emma nodded, understanding the logic even as she resented its necessity. That evening Emma sat in her apartment staring at her phone as Alexander had texted 3 times, "I'm sorry about the board meeting, this isn't how I wanted things to go, can we talk? I feel like we should discuss what this means for us, and Emma, please, I need to know you're okay." She finally called him, and when he answered she said, "I'm okay, just processing," and Alexander started, "The board was out of line." But Emma interrupted, "The board was protecting the company and protecting me whether I like it or not." "They're right, Alexander, if we're together people will always question whether I earned my success or whether it was just proximity to you," and he said, "That's their problem, not ours," but she replied, "It becomes our problem when it undermines the work. I think we need to take a step back." There was silence on the other end of the line before he asked, "From the project or from us?" And Emma said, "From us, for now, until I can prove, to the board, to the company, to myself, that I deserve to be where I am." And Alexander said, "Emma, you do deserve it, you've already proven that," but she insisted, "Not enough, not yet," with her voice cracking as she continued, "I need to do this right, Alexander. My whole life people have underestimated me, Marcus, my family, everyone, and this is my chance to show what I'm actually capable of, and I can't do that if there's even a shadow of doubt about whether I'm here because of my work or because of who I'm sleeping with." Alexander said, "We're not sleeping together," and she replied, "You know what I mean," before another pause, and he asked, "What are you asking for? Time? Space?" And Emma said, "Both. I need to build this project into something undeniable, something that succeeds because it's good, not because it has the CEO's protection," and she wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling as she continued, "And I need to know that what we have, whatever this is, can exist independent of work, that it's real, not just convenient or exciting because it's complicated." Alexander said quietly, "It's real, at least it is for me," and Emma replied, "Then it can wait. If it's real it can wait until I'm ready, until we're ready," and she heard him exhale before saying, "Okay, if that's what you need I'll give you space." "But Emma," And when she said yes, he told her, I'm not going anywhere. When you're ready, if you're ready, I'll be here. Winter transformed into spring as Emma threw herself into hometown stories with singular focus, and the project expanded to 5 cities, featured 73 small businesses, generated millions in community economic impact, with Emma's team growing to 15 people, her office moving to a larger space on 41, and her name starting to appear in industry publications as an innovator in community-focused marketing. She saw Alexander rarely, glimpses in the elevator, formal presentations to the executive team, brief nods in passing, and the oversight committee approved her decisions. The metrics spoke for themselves, and slowly the gossip faded as Emma Chen became known not as the woman dating Alexander Hayes, but as the woman revolutionizing community engagement. It was everything she'd wanted, yet it also felt incomplete, and one evening as they reviewed campaign materials, Priya said, "You look exhausted. When's the last time you did something that wasn't work-related?" Emma mentioned going to the gym yesterday, but Priya said, "That doesn't count. I mean something fun, a date maybe," and Emma hadn't dated anyone since the board meeting, having declined every colleague who'd asked because her heart wasn't in it. "I'm focused on work right now," she said, but Priya pointed out, "You've been focused on work for 6 months, at some point focus becomes avoidance," and maybe it was avoidance because Emma had built exactly what she'd set out to build, a career that stood on its own, success that no one could attribute to anyone but herself, and yet late at night in her apartment she found herself remembering a dance at a gala, a conversation over terrible coffee and excellent pie, the feeling of Alexander's hand tucking hair behind her ear. The annual Riverside Charity Gala arrived again, exactly 1 year after Emma and Alexander had first met, and Hayes Industries had a table again. But this time Emma was invited not as a random employee but as a featured guest in recognition for Hometown Stories' impact. She wore a different dress this time, one she'd bought herself not from a consignment shop but from an actual boutique because she'd earned it, and the ballroom looked the same, but Emma felt transformed, confident, grounded, complete in ways that had nothing to do with romantic prospects. And then she saw him. Alexander stood near the bar talking with a group of executives, wearing the same type of tuxedo with the same posture, but something was different as he looked tired, older maybe, or just more human. Their eyes met across the room and Emma felt her carefully constructed composure waver, and he excused himself from his conversation and walked toward her, and suddenly Emma was 29 again, heartbroken and hiding, watching a stranger approach who would change her life. "Miss Chen," he said formally, "you look lovely," and she replied, "Mr. Hayes, thank you," before they stood in awkward silence, years of intimacy constrained by professional necessity. Finally Alexander said quietly, "I've missed you," and Emma's breath caught as she started, "Alexander," but he interrupted, "I know, I'm not supposed to say that, but it's been 6 months of watching you from a distance and I'm tired of pretending I don't care," and Emma admitted, "I care too, but I meant what I said, I needed to do this on my own," and Alexander said, "And you have. Emma, you've built something extraordinary. No one, not the board, not the media, not Marcus, not anyone can question your success now," and she said, "I know," before he asked, "So the question is, was the success all you wanted? Or is there still room for something else?" Before Emma could answer, the orchestra began playing the same waltz from a year ago, and Alexander asked, echoing her words from that first night, "Could you dance with me? Not as your CEO, not as your colleague, just as Alexander, the man who met you at your lowest point and saw your highest potential." Emma looked at him, really looked, and saw not the billionaire, not the boss, but the person who had believed in her when she'd stopped believing in herself, who had given her opportunity but demanded she seize it herself, who had loved her enough to step back when she needed space. "Yes," she said, "I'd love to dance with you," and his hand settled on her waist, familiar and right, as they moved onto the floor, and this time Emma was aware of every eye on them, but she didn't care. "I have a confession," Alexander murmured as they swayed to the music, and Emma asked, "What's that?" and he said, "I've attended every single one of your presentations, I sat in the back, pretended I was just monitoring company initiatives, but really I just wanted to watch you shine," and Emma laughed saying, "That's either very sweet or very creepy," and he replied, "Let's go with sweet." They danced through the entire song, and when it ended they didn't separate, Alexander's hand remaining on her waist, Emma's hand still in his, and she asked, "What happens now?" He said, "That depends, are you ready? And Emma thought about the past 6 months, the struggles, the triumphs, the moments of doubt and determination, thought about who she'd been a year ago and who she was now, and she said, yes, I'm ready. Alexander suggested, then how about we start over? Properly this time. Dinner tomorrow, not a work meeting, not a strategy session, just two people getting to know each other without all the complications. And Emma asked, what about the board? The oversight committee? Alexander's smile was mischievous as he replied, what about them? You're not reporting to me anymore, you're a successful executive in your own right. If you choose to date me, that's between us and our HR department's disclosure forms. And Emma laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months, asking, when you put it that way. And he said, is that a yes? She looked up at him, this man who had rescued her from embarrassment, believed in her ideas, and given her space to prove herself, this man who had waited 6 months without complaint because he understood what she needed, and Emma said, yes, it's a yes. Across the ballroom, Marcus watched Emma dance with Alexander Hayes, and for the first time in 6 months he felt the full weight of what he'd lost, with Vanessa standing beside him, diamond ring catching the light, perfect and cold, observing, she looks happy, and Marcus agreed quietly, she does, before Vanessa said, and you look miserable, and when Marcus started, Vanessa, she interrupted, don't. I'm not stupid, Marcus, I know what this is, what we are, a merger of families, not a marriage of hearts, and he protested, that's not true, but she challenged, isn't it, gesturing toward Emma and Alexander saying, look at them, that's what it's supposed to look like, and you and I, we're just going through the motions. Before Marcus could respond, Vanessa removed her engagement ring and pressed it into his hand, saying, I'm calling it off. Life's too short to marry someone who's in love with someone else, even if that someone else has moved on, and she walked away, leaving Marcus holding a ring worth more than most people's cars, feeling emptier than he ever had in his life. 2 years later, the Hometown Stories headquarters occupied an entire floor, no longer just part of Hayes Industries but a semi-autonomous non-profit funded by the Harrington Foundation and partnerships with dozens of corporations, and Emma's office had panoramic windows, a team of 50, and a waiting list of cities begging to be part of the program. She also had an engagement ring, simple and elegant with a stone that caught the light beautifully, given to her 6 months ago by a man who'd proposed not in some grand gesture but over Sunday morning pancakes in their shared apartment. Ready for this? Alexander asked, adjusting his tie as they prepared to enter the community center in the Bronx, and Emma replied, as ready as I'll ever be, as they were announcing the Hometown Stories expansion to 10 new cities along with a scholarship program for aspiring entrepreneurs in underserved communities. Inside, the room was packed with business owners, community leaders, and press, and Emma took the podium with Alexander sitting in the audience like any other attendee. Beginning 2 years ago, I was a mid-level marketing coordinator with a dream of making corporate engagement mean something real. Today we're proving that dream works, and she went on to outline the expansion, the scholarships, the vision for the future, and as she spoke she caught Alexander's eye and saw pride, love, and something else, partnership. After the presentation, as they prepared to leave, a young woman approached Emma nervously, saying, Ms. Chen? I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to thank you. Your story, how you started with nothing and built all this, it's inspired me to apply for the scholarship program. And Emma smiled, asking, what's your business idea? The young woman said, community bookstore cafe. I know it's probably been done before, but Emma interrupted gently, every great idea has been done before. What matters is how you do it and why you care. Tell me about your why. As the young woman launched into her vision, Alexander watched Emma with quiet satisfaction, knowing this was why he'd fallen for her, not despite her ambition but because of it, not because she needed rescuing but because she'd rescued herself and then turned around to help others do the same. They left the community center hand in hand, walking through streets Emma had helped revitalize, past businesses whose stories she'd helped tell, and Emma said, remember when you asked me what I wanted? That first night at the gala? Alexander said, I remember, and she continued, I told you I wanted to create something that mattered, to tell stories that connected with people, and he said, you've done that, in ways neither of us imagined. But Emma stopped walking and turned to face him, saying, I couldn't have done it without you, and Alexander replied, yes you could have, maybe not in exactly this way but you would have found a path. You're brilliant, Emma Chen. And she corrected, we're brilliant together, that's what I've learned. Success isn't about doing it alone, It's about finding people who believe in you enough to let you fly but who are also there to catch you if you fall. Alexander pulled her close saying, "I'll always be there to catch you," and she said, "And I'll always be there to remind you to look up from quarterly reports and remember why we do this," and they kissed there on the Bronx Street corner, two people who'd found each other in a moment of crisis and built something lasting from it. In the distance they could hear music from one of the cafes they'd featured, someone's grandmother singing in Spanish, children laughing, the sounds of a community thriving, and Alexander asked, echoing Emma's words from 2 years ago, "Could you dance with me?" And Emma replied, "Always," and right there on the sidewalk under the fading daylight they danced. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful transformations begin with a single moment of courage, a whispered request, and the willingness to believe that you deserve more than you've been told. If this story touched your heart, drop a red heart in the comments. And tell me, would you have chosen love or career first? What would you have done in Emma's shoes? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to follow for more stories that will make you believe in second chances and the power of believing in yourself. Sometimes the best love stories are the ones where you choose yourself first. Flex biceps sparkles. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.